Good morning, dear students. Today we will take up Snapshot, and the very first chapter of Snapshot is The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse. The story is about two poor Armenian boys who belong to a tribe whose hallmarks are trust and honesty. It means the protagonist here belongs to a tribe where these two things, trust and honesty, are very important in that particular tribe. Like people believed in these two virtues. One day back there, in the good old days, when I was 9, one minute it has gone up. One day back there, in the good old days, when I was 9 and the world was full of envy. Now, when you need to understand the very first line, it is written in first person narrative. So the author is talking about his own experience, and he's saying that he was at that time 9 years old, and the world was full of imaginable, kind of magnificence, beauty, and life was such a delightful and mysterious dream. Mysterious means complex, and delightful means happy. So he's talking about a time when life was so full of beauty and delightful, dream. At such a time, my cousin Murad, who was considered crazy. Now his cousin was considered crazy. You know what is crazy? He's like mad. So everybody thought him like as a mad boy. Who knew him, whosoever knew him, like thought him that he's a mad boy, except me. Like I only was the one who differed like from these people. And he came to my house one day at 4 in the morning, and he woke me up tapping on the window of my room. So who woke the author up in the morning? It was his cousin Murad. Aram, he said. So what is the name of the author? It is Aram. I jumped out of bed and looked out of the window. I couldn't believe what I saw. It wasn't morning yet, but it was summer, and with daybreak, not many minutes around the corner of the world, it was light enough for me to know I was not dreaming. So the author is saying that it was not morning, but definitely it was a summertime, and since summertime it was a daybreak time, so daybreak time you can understand there would be enough light to make him understand that he was not dreaming anymore. And his cousin Murad was sitting on a beautiful white horse. So the author stuck his head out of the window and he rubbed his eyes. And yes, he said in Armenian, it's a horse, you're not dreaming, make it quick if you want to ride. So in short, you need to understand that the author's cousin had brought a horse and he wanted them to go on a ride. I knew my cousin Murad enjoyed being alive more than anybody else who had ever fallen into the world by mistake. So I knew as a matter of fact that my cousin loves to kind of, have good time around. He loves to enjoy every bit of life. But this was more than even I could believe. Like this bringing a horse at my doorstep was something more than I had ever expected him to be, doing for me. In the first place, my earliest memories had been memories of horses, and my first longings had been longings to ride. So the author is saying that I have always cherished a dream to go on a ride on a horse, and I had always cherished this desire to, longing is desire to ride. This was the wonderful part. In the second place, we were poor. But the thing is that they were poor and they could not have afforded such a beautiful, magnificent horse. This was the part that wouldn't permit me to believe what I saw. So my poverty was something which would not let me see what I saw. We were poor, we had no money. Our whole tribe was poverty stricken, like damn poor. Every branch of the Gargolarian family was living in the most amazing and comical poverty. Like we belonged to one particular tribe, that's Gargolarian, okay? And we were living in a very amazing and comical poverty in the world. Like we were very honest people, but we were poor. Nobody could understand where we ever got money enough to keep us with food in our bellies. Like people would find it hard to believe that how we managed to get our stomach filled. Not even the old men of the family, like they would not understand how we got, both ends meet. Most important of all though, we were famous for our honesty. We had been famous for honesty for something like 11 centuries, even when we had been the wealthiest family in what we like to think was the world. We were proud first, honest next. We were really proud of our attributes, we were really proud of our qualities, and then comes the honesty next. And after that, we believed in right and wrong. And the third thing which we believed in, what is right and wrong. None of us would take advantage of anybody in the world, let alone steal. And we were kind of people who would never take advantage of anybody in this world. And we would never steal, let alone steal means you cannot even think of us as stealing, things from others. Consequently, even though I could see the horse so magnificent, even though I could smell it so lovely, even though I could hear it breathing, like I was so much fascinated by that sight. I could smell the horse, I could hear it breathing, and it was so exciting. I couldn't believe the horse had anything to do with my cousin Murad, or with me, or with any of the other members of our family, asleep or awake, because I knew my cousin couldn't have brought the horse, and like I knew that we were so poor, so anybody in my family who is awake at this time or who is sleeping, he cannot have anything to do with this horse because it's a very, very expensive horse. And I know as a matter of fact that we cannot afford such an expensive horse. And if he couldn't have bought it, he must have stolen it. So one thing is for sure, that my cousin has not bought the horse, but he has stolen it. And I refuse to believe he had stolen it. But my mind did not let me believe that my cousin can steal the horse, because we were the proud tribe. We would never steal things. No member of the Gargulanian family could be a thief. I knew we can never be a thief. I stared first at my cousin and then at the horse. There was a pious stillness and humor. Pious means holy. Stillness means quiet, silence. And, in each of them, which on the one hand delighted me, on the so my cousin was like very quiet, very composed. To some extent, it delighted me, it made me happy, but on the other extent, it frightened me, it scared me. Murad, I said, where did you steal this horse? Leap out of the window, he said. He said, why do you want to argue about it, whether I have stolen it or not? Like, you need to ride, you want to ride, you will always cherish this dream, so you better come out of the window and just let's go for a ride. It was true then. He had stolen the horse. There was no question about it. He had come to invite me to ride or not, as I chose. Well, it seemed to me stealing a horse for a ride was not the same thing as stealing something else. Now, you need to understand the human psychology here. Since I always wanted to go on a ride, it was my big time, dream of life. Now, when the horse was there, and knowing that my cousin had stolen it, but my mind refused to believe that it is a stolen horse. Why? Because if I had believed in that, I could not have forced myself to use that particular opportunity. So I did not want to see it as a stealing, thing. I wanted to believe in something else. Okay. For all I knew, maybe it wasn't stealing at all. If you were crazy about, horses the way my cousin Murad and I were, it wasn't stealing. So the author's point of view here is that if you are crazy for something in life, then even if you steal, it can be forgiven, which is like very bizarre, conviction. It wouldn't become stealing until we offer to sell the horse. Now he's saying that it would be a stealing if we sell the horse to somebody, which of course I knew we would never do. So we were not those pilferers. We did not pilfer the horse. Now let me put on some clothes, I said. All right, he said, but hurry up. I leaped into my clothes. I jumped down to the yard from the window and I leapt up onto the horse behind my cousin Murad. That year we lived at the edge of town. We were living at the edge. Edge means at the boundary of the town on Walnut Avenue. Behind our house was the country, vineyards, orchards, irrigation ditches and country roads. All these things were there. And in less than 3 minutes we were on Olive Avenue. Olive Avenue is like way. Way. Avenue is always a way. And then the horse began to trot. Trot means galloping. The air was new and lovely to breathe. The feel of the horse running was wonderful. My cousin, who was considered one of the craziest members of our family, he began to now sing. Now let me tell you, this is something about human nature. Like when you enjoy the ride, it could be a bike ride or a car ride, you start kind of humming. You love songs, at that time, because that is euphoric. That particular moment is euphoric. He began to roar because he cannot sing, so he started roaring. Every family has a crazy streak in it somewhere. Now the author is talking about the madness in his family, like it used to run in his family, and he's saying that my cousin Murad was considered the natural descendant of the crazy streak in our tribe. Like my cousin Murad had all the attributes, all the traits of a crazy man. Before him was our uncle. Now, other than my cousin, there was one more person who was as crazy as my cousin, and he was Uncle Khusro. He was an enormous man. What is enormous? Huge man with a powerful head of black hair and the largest mustache in the San Joaquin Valley. A man so furious in temper. He was very furious. Furious means very angry, so irritable, like he would get irritated very soon. So impatient that he had no patience, that he stopped anyone from talking by roaring. Like this man had no patience. And if anybody would talk to him for more, he would just cut him short and he would say, "It is no harm, pay no attention to it." Only one thing which he would keep saying is that, "It is no harm, pay no attention to it." That was all, no matter what anybody happened to be talking about. Once it was his own son Arak running. Now, one incident is given here. Once what happened, his son Arak, uncle's son, he was running some 8 blocks to the barber shop. Running 8 blocks means it's a distance. Sometimes we say kilometers, we say meters, 100 meters, but here the distance is measured in blocks: 1 block, 2 block, 3 block. So here the distance is 8 blocks to the barber shop. Now Arak is the son of that uncle, and the uncle was having his mustache trimmed. Mustache, no? So he was getting his trimmed, shaped, to tell him their house was on fire. Now the son went to his father. He said, "Daddy, the house is on fire." Now this man Khusro, he sat up in the chair and he roared. He did not like being interrupted, so he said, "It is no harm, pay no attention to it." Because he was a kind of person. Every time he would say, "It is no harm, pay no attention." Now the barber said, "But the boy says your house is on fire." So Khusro roared, "Enough, it is no harm, I say." So you can understand what kind of crazy man he was. His own house was on fire, and still he's asking his own son to remain quiet, let it go on, let the house burn. So my cousin Murad was considered the natural descendant of this man, although Murad's father was Zorab. But my cousin's father was, he was not his father was Zorab, and father was not as crazy as other members in the family. The father was a very practical man, and that's how it was in our tribe. A man could be the father of his son's flesh, but that did not mean that he was a. So you can understand, they are father and the son. To some extent, it is okay, but so by flesh, he was the son of that particular man, but in his spirit, he was different. The father was a very quiet, very composed, very nice man, but the son was crazy. So the distribution of the various kinds of spirit of our tribe, they had been from the beginning very capricious and vagrant. Capricious is playful kind of, and full of energy. So we stop here, and we will carry on in our next video tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.